All right, I wanted to do a video on this before anything else happened in the Brandon Aiyuk saga. The Browns reportedly were going to send Amari Cooper, a second-round pick and a fifth-rounder, all the way over to California in exchange for Brandon Aiyuk. A contract was laid out. Brandon Aiyuk put an end to this because he didn't want to go. And I want to put the emphasis on for now. He doesn't want to go to Cleveland or New England for now. As of today, Saturday, I think August 10th, the Steelers really seem to be the only other option other than staying in San Francisco and playing out his contract. However, the reason why I'm putting an emphasis on for now is the last time Cleveland wanted to trade for a star player, the same thing happened to them. Deshaun Watson had said that he did not want to go to Cleveland. He shut down any trade talks when he was moving on from Houston. However, Cleveland comes back, offers him an historic contract that we've never seen. We still haven't seen today, 3 years later. And he says, you know what? Cleveland's not so bad. Sorry, all those teams in the NFC South clamoring for my services. I'm not going to go to Atlanta. I'm not going to go to New Orleans, Carolina, anywhere. I'm going to Cleveland. That could happen. Brandon Aiyuk gets an even better contract, which right now the Browns are supposedly outbidding the Steelers in terms of trade compensation and contract compensation. If they make that even bigger of a discrepancy, Brandon Aiyuk might reconsider. Heck, the Patriots or another team still might be in on this. Cleveland, a little bit better than the Patriots. I would probably prefer going there. Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski calling the plays is a little bit better than whoever's calling them in New England with a combination of Drake May and Jacoby Brissett running the offense. But for now, I don't want to go too much into the weeds. We're already 2 minutes into the video. Let's talk about this trade because I think the Niners would have made out like bandits if it had gone through. For starters, I think Amari Cooper is just straight up a better wide receiver and a better football player than Brandon Aiyuk is in 2024. With that said, Brandon Aiyuk seems to be an ascending player. He's much younger. I think Aiyuk's 25, 26 tops. Amari Cooper is definitely getting a little bit longer in the tooth. However, if we're just talking about 2024, which we are, both of these teams are contenders. The Niners trying to keep the gang back together for one last season before they have to pay Brock Purdy. Obviously, we have Trent Williams holding out right now. He's holding out. Aiyuk's holding in. George Kittle's contract's going to get crazy. Debo's going to be up for a new contract. Things are about to get very costly for the Niners. Some changes are going to have to be made after the roster. That's one of the reasons why they didn't want to pay Aiyuk. I think that they're fine with him moving on. They just want to keep him for one more season, see if they can finally get over the hump and win the Super Bowl. But for this year, I'm going to take Amari Cooper. And I feel like that's a hot take just because Aiyuk's been the flavor of the month. Aiyuk's in the news. Aiyuk wanted a new contract. Aiyuk's on a flashier team. The Niners are flashier than the Browns. So people in their heads, I think, have just kind of made the mental note that Brandon Aiyuk is insanely good. He's a wide receiver one. The problem is there's like 25 top 10 wide receivers. Brandon Aiyuk's towards the lower end of that. And just because he's in the news more doesn't mean that he's better than some of these old heads. I'm still taking Amari Cooper. I'm still taking Keenan Allen over Brandon Aiyuk. Mike Evans. I'm still taking Mike Evans. Just because you're on a flashy team and you're younger doesn't mean that you're better. For 2024, Amari Cooper is still the better wide receiver. Not saying that a year from now, Brandon Aiyuk's going to be even better. Great. Then he'll be better then. For this season, though, Amari Cooper as a wide receiver in an offense shared with Christian McCaffrey, the best offensive lineman in Trent Williams, George Kittle, Debo Samuel, and then Brock Purdy, who, love him or hate him, you have to admit, there's at least something there. Amari Cooper would thrive. He has not had a good of a situation as that since early on in the Cowboys' tenure when Dak, Zeke, all of them were lighting it up. I think Witten might have still been there at the time. The offensive line was still at their peak. Amari would thrive. And here's what I mean by Brandon Aiyuk really just being the flavor of the month. And first off, I want to point out how good his stats are. Listen, he's an ascending player. Like I said, he's gotten better each year of his career. And it's very feasible that he could continue that trend this year. The problem, he's not practicing. Say what you want. Eventually, you have to get ready for the season. Brandon Aiyuk, though, been amazing last year. Incredible, 75 catches, 1,342 yards, 18 yards per catch. I believe that's second only to Khalil Shakir. And listen, Shakir didn't have quite the target share that Brandon Aiyuk did. I don't have the targets up here, but I think Aiyuk was around the 120s. So pretty decent share, pretty decent production. Incredible. A very good wide receiver. Is he one of those elite wide receivers? Like when they were asking for a first rounder, because AJ Brown, they sent a first rounder for him, and then the Eagles paid him anyway. Like that became like the new thing. We saw it with Tyreek Hill. You send over first rounder, they pay him. They thought Brandon Aiyuk's nowhere close to AJ Brown and Tyreek Hill. Here are Amari Cooper's stats. Look at the 2023, obviously, because that's what we're talking about. He averaged a little bit less per catch, 17.9 to 17.4, but still a couple less touchdowns. He did have a few more targets than Brandon Aiyuk. Nothing crazy, but I do want to tell the whole story. I'm not going to pick and choose which stats I tell you. However, Brandon Aiyuk played in 16 games. Amari Cooper played in just 16. So one less game. Plays in Cleveland, which, let's face it, the quarterback situation was nowhere close to the Niners quarterback situation. Brock Purdy was in the MVP conversation really up until that Christmas Day game against the Ravens where he completely shat the bed. Amari Cooper had a washed Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who wasn't ready, PJ Walker, who was atrocious, and then Joe Flacco came in and saved the day. But that wasn't until the very end of the season. Add on the fact, I love Kevin Stefanski. I think he's a great head coach, a good play caller. He's not Kyle Shanahan. Okay, there's still a huge discrepancy on who's the better offensive mind, Kyle Shanahan versus Kevin Stefanski. Amari Cooper, I think it would have had similar numbers to Brandon Aiyuk last year. Heck, maybe even better. That's why I would say he is the better wide receiver, at least for this year. Moving forward, going the younger guy, the ascending guy, probably a good idea. But it doesn't really seem like either one of these guys are going to be on their teams long term. It truly is just for this year. And then let's talk about the rest of what they're going to get. A second-round pick and a fifth-round pick. We don't know if those were second and fifth rounders from this year, next year, or the year after that. However, do you remember just a few minutes ago when I was saying how crazy the Niners cap situation is going to be just next offseason when Brock Purdy needs to get paid? It's going to be a mess. Guess how you kind of supplement that and make sure even with roster turnover, you're okay. You go and get cheap talent. The best way to get cheap talent through the draft. Whether that second round pick was pick 64, let's say the Browns win the Super Bowl. Still, you're going to get quite a good player there at pick 64. I trust Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch to handpick a good talent and then go and develop them. And then a fifth round pick, yeah, might be a nobody, but guess what? George Kittle was a fifth rounder. And like I said, I think that this would be a huge, clear win for the Niners. It also leaves me scratching my head on why Cleveland would even offer this. Andrew Berry, whether it's him calling the shots, whether it's Jimmy Haslam calling the shots, and Andrew Berry's done a pretty good job of building a solid roster, even if he did inherit a pretty good basis. There seems to be some lack of long-term vision because their wide receiver depth chart has already a ton invested in it. So now you're going to invest a second rounder and a fifth rounder. I get it. Amari Cooper's not there. But Jerry Jeudy and Brandon Aiyuk become one of the most expensive wide receiver duos in the NFL. I don't know about you, but Brandon Aiyuk and Jerry Jeudy, that's not like something insanely inspiring to me. It's not bad, but it's not great. Elijah Moore, you traded for him. Not paid yet, but still. Cedric Tillman, second rounder. Jamari Thrash, third rounder. David Bell, I believe he's a third rounder also. Add on the fact that you're paying David Njoku and Nick Chubb top money with your absurd quarterback. That's a lot of investment right now into how much return on that investment are you really going to get? I know this trade's not going to happen. However, I'm not going to count out the Browns being the winner of the Aiyuk sweepstakes. But at this point, if you're going to give up that much, are you really even a winner?